So, I got into bird watching 5 months ago. When you think of bird watchers, you're probably imagining retired people, grandpas wearing vests, and just basically white people with nothing better to do with their time. Well, I'm a bit pale, and I'm kind of on my fun employment era at the moment, so I kind of fit the profile. But in all seriousness, let me tell you how I got into this hobby and how I've been honing what my parents consider to be a useless skill. It all started with my spark bird, aka the starling, also known as the common starling or European starling. Let me paint the scene of how we met. I was walking through Alexanderplatz in Berlin on my way to pick up a bike when I suddenly spied an iridescent purplish green hue with my little eye. I stopped in my tracks, looked to my right, and saw a beautiful black bird with a yellowish beak and rainbow-esque feathers. I documented this encounter in a notebook when I got home that day. It was the 10th of July of 2022. I saw a beautiful black bird picking the soil from a tree in Alexanderplatz in front of the TV tower. I stopped for a second and said out loud, "Ooh, pretty bird," and kept walking. The black bird with iridescent feathers belongs to the starling family. Every day is a wonder. But of course, in a true professional procrastinator manner, I didn't indulge in bird watching right away. In fact, it took me a whole year to get started. It was the summer of 2023. My partner and I were in France, driving back to his grandparents' house from a day trip to Honfleur, or however you pronounce it, I don't speak French. There, we had experienced the most incredible Animal Planet moment that I'm still so sad we didn't record. So we were walking around town when I spotted a cute bird, and I go, "Look, it's a baby seagull." My partner is like, "How do you know it's a baby seagull?" And while we're having this back and forth, an adult gull starts walking towards the birdie, stops, and vomits a piece of fish into the birdie's mouth, right in front of us. We audibly gasped. We couldn't believe our eyes. And no one stopped. No one cared. No one did anything. At that moment, exactly 1 year after the starling incident, I knew I wanted to get serious about bird watching. So I said in passing that I wanted to get a book on birds, but I quickly forgot about it because we were about to move continents, and the last thing I needed was another book in my suitcase. But my partner, being the person that he is, surprised me 2 weeks later with my very first book on birding. After moving across the pond, I found myself back at my parents' house, and I started to pay attention to the birds around me. I noticed their color, their size, their sounds, and the way they would behave. I downloaded the eBird app, started to read my book, and planned my first bird watching trip. After my first birding tour, I came home feeling super inspired. I had met my very first fellow birder, and he could ID birds by the faintest of sounds coming from afar. He even knew all the names both in English and Nicaraguan Spanish, and believe me, there's a difference between Nicaraguan Spanish and other Spanishes, and I was just in awe. After that trip, a new goal cemented into my brain. I wanted to become a fluent birder, just like he was. So I got to work. I finished my book and started another one, Birding Basics by Noah Stricker, which I highly recommend to any fellow beginners out there. It's a 5 out of 5 stars read. Every morning, I would sit on the terrace and look out to the trees. And every afternoon, I would walk around the garden and try to find any new birds. Repetition made me familiar with their calls, and slowly but surely, I started to recognize every bird in my patch by sound. This meant that whenever there was a new bird in town, I would immediately notice it based on the unfamiliar sounds coming from my backyard. So by learning new sounds, bringing my birding tools everywhere I go, and just paying attention to my surroundings, I've managed to grow my life list from 0 to 58. So that's the story of how I got into bird watching. 5 months in, and it's truly one of the biggest sources of joy in my life. I know some of you might be thinking, "Oh, you should be doing something better with your time." And to you, I say, my friend, go outside, smell the flowers, and let your mind be changed by the beauty of nature.